The Lord of the Mysteries power system is one of the most complicated in all of fiction, and in today's video I'm going to be going over every single one and putting it on a tier list from S tier all the way down to D tier. And without further ado, let's get straight into the S tier. Alright, let's kick it off straight with the S tier, and at the top of the S tier is the Fool pathway. I don't think there's any debate about this. The Fool pathway is the strongest pathway in the series in my opinion. Maybe the Error pathway contends it, but we'll talk about that in just a second. The Fool pathway, higher sequences, we all know how broken it is. Sequence 0 Fool is top 1 in the series. Sequence 1 Attendant to Mysteries is top 1 in the series. Sequence 2 is like top 3 in the series. So Sequence 3, it's the strongest one in the series. So as you can see, there's quite a trend here. The higher sequences are definitely the strongest in the entire verse. Even the lower sequences are really underrated in my opinion. I don't think they're as weak as everyone claims there to be. You get divination and you get physical abilities. You get a mix of everything. You can use marionettes. I think it is the most versatile, one of the most versatile and the strongest pathway at the higher sequences for sure. And I think it easily deserves the top 1 spot. And right next to it is the Error pathway. The Error pathway, recent news has come out about it. At the sequence 2 level, they are able to steal other people's beyonder characteristics. That is broken, and it's especially high success rate of adjacent pathways. That means if you're a sequence 3 or above of the Fool pathway and you run into a Trojan Horse of Destiny, which is sequence 2 of the Error pathway, you're pretty much done for. There's not much you can do. Yes, if you're a demigod, the sort of probability that they can steal it is quite low, but still, the fact that they can do that and they can steal anchors, they can abuse loopholes, we all know how strong Amon is. Error pathway definitely deserves top 2, top 3. Arguably Visionary, these are all interchangeable, is definitely top 3 as well. Visionary, we all see how well Adam can use his pathway. He is able to know whenever someone's talking about him, whenever someone thinks about him, whenever someone says his name, unless you have concealment from the darkness pathway. And yeah, he can write things into existence. He can envision a divine kingdom. He can envision beyond their characteristics. There's so much you can do as a visionary. And even again, at the lower sequences, it is quite underrated. You aren't as fragile as everyone makes you out to seem. If someone's corrupted and approaching you, you simply use awe, you simply use a mind attack, and they're instantly get corrupted. They're going to leave you alone. On top of that, if someone does physically attack you, let's say a warrior pathway user, if you're from the sequence 7 and above level, you can simply use your dragon scales, which is a sort of an very incomplete version of your mythical creature form, and you'll be fine. At the sequence 4 level, you can use your incomplete mythical creature form without any trouble because of plastate. No other pathway can use their mythical creature form that early except for the Visionary pathway. So I think just all of these things combined with Adam make it easily top 3 in my opinion. Now next up, I have quite a controversial pick here. I have the Hunter and the Demoness pathway in the S tier as well. I think they are so versatile, especially the Hunter pathway has an argument to be way higher even, simply because the fact that they have the authority over conquering. This means they can conquer true gods as well. If they are sequence 0, they can make any other true god, depending on who it is, depending on what true god, submit to them. Now after they submit to them, they can put them in their army, and once someone is in their army, they can use any ability of theirs and they can share their abilities with those people as well. I think that whole sort of idea of conquering other things and even being able to conquer other true gods is absolutely insane. On top of them being able to use sort of a deal, sort of a pact with the higher sequences, it's preferred if it's adjacent pathways, so the Demoness, in order to gain sequence 0 abilities when they're even at the sequence 1 level, or if they're sequence 2 being able to gain sequence 1. So it is broken. And right next to it, of course, the Demoness pathway, in my opinion, the most versatile pathway in the entire series. I'm a bit biased because I love Demonesses, pause. But I think lower sequences, they have the greatest in the entire series. Sequence 9 is the best. Sequence 3 is the best. They have incredible sort of escape potential similar to the Fool, Error, and Door pathway, while also having physical prowess that those 3 pathways don't have. So I think Demoness pathway deserves its spot here. And the last pathway in the S tier is going to be the Door pathway. Again, I can't leave the Door pathway out of the S tier. I have to put it with its bros, the Fool and the Error pathway. The Door pathway is incredibly broken at higher sequences. The greatest sequence 2, for example, Planeswalker, having authorities over space, being able to replicate different Beyonder abilities, being able to replicate scenes. Let's say I see a Great Old One, which I'm not supposed to see, but if I'm a sequence 0, maybe I can handle it to some degree. I can simply take that scene and then replicate it onto a poor innocent sequence 4 Beyonder, and they'll be instantly corrupted by that Great Old One. So they can even like copy crazy sort of concepts like that, on top of them being everywhere at once at the sequence 0 level, and having the highest escape capabilities in the entire series, right? We all saw Mr. Door, how he's able to escape sequence 0s for a very long time. So yeah, absolutely broken, deserves this. And let's get into the A tier. Okay, next up we have the A tier, and at the top of the A tier I have the Justiciar and the Black Emperor pathways. Now these pathways are the definition of solid gold, solid middle. They are incredibly broken, but not too broken to be in the S tier, but they give you absolutely everything. The first 2 sequences of the Black Emperor pathway, sequence 9 and sequence 8, Barbarian and Lawyer, give you everything you need. instantly. At the sequence 8 level, you can stop there and you can be chilling for the rest of your life. You're fine. You already won as a Beyonder. You have both physical prowess and mental prowess to get you through daily life. But once we go to the higher sequences, they are both insanely broken, right? Being able to create laws and rules, they're both incredibly similar and both incredibly broken. Easily deserve the A tier. You can even make an argument for, I believe, Justiciar to be in the S tier or the Black Emperor, depending on which one you value more. I believe Justiciar has slightly more combat strength, but the Black Emperor pathway does have the ability to resurrect at the sequence 0 level, even if all your mausoleums have been destroyed. So you can make an argument for both them being the S tier, but I think they belong right next to each other in the top of the A tier. Now, the Hermit pathway is a very shocking one, but it did receive a recent buff. And that is the fact that at Knowledge Emperor, they're able to copy other people's ability. We all know how useful it is to be able to copy other people's ability. It is one of the most useful abilities you can have in general, and the Hermit pathway, because of recent news, they have received that boon, and I think that propels them straight into the A tier. Now, next up, I have the Hanged Man pathway. Now, the Hanged Man pathway is an interesting one, because once you go down this pathway, you are basically giving yourself a death sentence, and you are making yourself incredibly fragile. But if you manage to pull through, you reach the sequence 5, you reach the demigod level, you become one of the strongest Beyonders out there. It is the strongest sequence 5 in the series, one of the strongest sequence 2s. It has, let's just talk about the sequence 5, because that's what everyone knows this pathway for. People even call it the Shepherd pathway. Shepherd, it allows you to graze 6 different souls, which means use 6 different people's abilities. Now, yes, you have to kill those people first, but it is doable, and at the sequence 5 level, you can even graze a demigod level soul, which is absolutely insane. Think about a sequence 5 using demigod level abilities. It is crazy to think about. And again, Klein had a sealed artifact with the Hangman characteristic on it, with the Shepherd sequence on it, and it carried him throughout the mid sequences so hard. So we are all aware of how strong it is, right? Creeping Hunger, absolutely goated. And right next to the Hangman pathway, I have the Death pathway. Now, the Death pathway, again, lower sequences aren't the strongest. Lower sequences do give you a lot of utility, though. Everyone needs a Death pathway Beyonder at the lower sequences with them because of their ability to contact the spirit world and talk to spirits. It is incredibly useful to have. We saw with Dali Simon, for example. And at the higher sequences, you become an absolute monster of the undead, right? We take a look at Death God Silinger. He was one of the most fearsome people ever in the history of Lord of the Mysteries. And we take a look at Azik, his son, and Azik is an absolute monster in his prime. And we see just how strong the potential of this pathway is. It's a shame we didn't see enough of it, in my opinion, but still, it is absolutely insane. And lastly, in the A tier, I have the Sun pathway, one of the more important bases of the God Almighty pathways, and I think it is simply the most useful pathway in the entire series. Think about it, if you're starting a Beyonder group, you always want a Sun pathway Beyonder with you. Corruption is one of the things that kills Beyonders the most, and the Sun pathway can simply hard counter that. On top of it, well, the Sun pathway hard counters the Chain pathway, which we will see later on. I'm sure if you guys can follow logical reasoning, you can see that the Chain pathway is pretty low on here, and the Sun pathway is one of the reasons for that. And yeah, let's go straight into the B tier. Now, next up, we have the B tier, and at the B tier, let's start it off with the Tyrant pathway. I absolutely love the Tyrant pathway, but I'm not sure I can put it in the A tier, but it is incredibly strong, right? If you're in the water, it's going to be in the S tier, right? It's the strongest water-based pathway. It is the only water-based pathway in the entire series. So if you're traveling the seas, you definitely want to go down the Tyrant pathway. I think it has incredibly strong destructive capabilities and attack power, but it doesn't have the mysticism, the sort of crazy sort of abilities to keep it up with the other A tier and S tier pathways, in my opinion, but still incredibly strong. Now, the Monster pathway, the Wheel of Fortune pathway. This is in my top 5 favorite pathways. I absolutely adore the Monster pathway, but I'm not sure I can put it any higher than this, simply because the fact that at lower sequences, they are nothing. They only gain ability to basically let them escape situations, right? Being able to use luck, etc. And even then, they aren't able to manipulate their own luck up until like sequence 5 or sequence 4, which is insane. So basically, until that level, they're not much. They can't really do much. They don't gain too many abilities. They definitely don't gain enough to put them in the A tier and the S tier, in my opinion. But once you do reach those higher sequences, it becomes broken. There's no doubt about that. I believe Rebirth at the sequence 1 level, that ability is one of the most useful in the entire series, and the other abilities that they have at the higher sequences are insane. But again, the lower sequences I think are incredibly weak, so it goes down here in the B tier. Now, next up, we have the Darkness pathway. I love the Darkness pathway as well. I think it's so cool. Leonard is a top 5 favorite character for me, and I like the way he uses it. But again, it doesn't have too much. It has concealment, which is incredibly useful, but in terms of combat ability, it doesn't have enough to put in the A or the S tier. Paragon, same thing goes for that. Paragon is the most mid pathway in the entire series, in my opinion, which isn't a bad thing necessarily. Most pathways are going to be in the B tier. But yeah, Paragon doesn't have too much going for it. I believe the Hermit pathway is simply a better version of it. Next up, we have the Mother pathway. Now, the Mother pathway could make an argument to go way higher on the B tier, and I actually will put it up here, because at the higher sequences, they can drain life from people itself. Now, the issue is the Mother Goddess of Depravity, but okay, we'll forget about that for now, and we'll put Mother at the top of B tier, or at the bottom of the A tier even, because the Mother pathway, I think, is incredibly broken at the higher sequences, and incredibly underrated, even at the lower sequences, with them being able to concoct various different things, like we saw Frag Lee do. I'm not sure. We'll put it top of B. I think that's a solid place for it. And next up, we have the White Tower and the Warrior pathway. Now, I think the White Tower and the Warrior pathway are both goated pathways, and again, just simply mid. White Tower, you don't get too much. The only thing you do is that it has one of the strongest sequence 6 polymath in the entire series, being able to copy different people's abilities. Basically, if you're a polymath, you're a rip-off version of the Shepherd. So, it's incredibly strong, so I think White Tower deserves this place here, not any lower, but it's definitely not a super combat focused pathway. And the Warrior pathway, now this is all about combat, but it doesn't have enough mysticism to put it in the A or the S tier, but I still think it is quite underrated. I think people hate on this pathway so much, but again, people have all these options between these mystical things, but hey, let's just pick up a freaking sword and let's slay some enemies, and it hard counters the Abyss pathway, which is why we're going to see the Abyss pathway down here in just a second. I think it's super underrated, and I think you just become a super strong dude. You become incredibly strong at the lower sequences, one of the strongest lower sequences, and at the higher sequences, yes, you're not the strongest, you don't have the craziest abilities, but you're incredibly durable. You can basically run away physically from battles, and it's going to be pretty hard to kill you. Now, we're going to not talk about the God of Combat here. And the last thing in the B tier is the Moon pathway. Moon pathway, nothing too much to say about it. I think the Mother pathway is simply a better version of the Moon pathway, in my opinion. You still have the issues with the Mother Goddess of Depravity, and you get some cool abilities. I think the Beyonders of the Moon pathway, especially the Sanguine, are incredibly cool. Emmeline is the most underrated Terror Club member, in my opinion, one of my favorites. But again, I can't put in the A or S tier when I take a look at these pathways in these sort of tiers. And next up, C tier, I have the Abyss pathway. Not too much to say about it. You're just going to get hunted down by official Beyonders. Combat prowess wise, maybe I'd put it up with the Hangman pathway. I might have to put it bottom of B, but still, I don't think it's a good idea to go down this pathway. You lose yourself, and it's just not worth it. And same thing goes for the Chain pathway. Both of these get countered by other pathways, hard countered by other pathways. Like if you're an Abyss pathway and you run into a Warrior, you're done for. And especially if you're a Chain pathway user and you run into a Sun Beyonder, you're absolutely done for. So I think these two deserve down here. I'm sorry, but I am the biggest Chain pathway Beyonder sort of hater. I absolutely despise the Chain pathway. I don't think it's a good pathway whatsoever. The acting method is insane. What do you mean I'm going to act like a zombie? What do you mean I'm going to act like a doll? Is it really worth it? Am I really going to act like a doll just to get some like mediocre abilities that don't compare to full pathway? Like it's not worth it, honestly, in my opinion. I'll show some love. I'll put it bottom C. I don't think any pathway is D. But I think this is a pretty solid is. So yeah, that's it for this video. Let me know what you guys thought. Let me know where you would place which pathway and what you disagree with. Feel free to argue with me in the comments. I'll gladly fight with anyone and defend myself. And hey, I'm open to new ideas. So yeah, thank you guys all so much for watching. See you guys in the next one. Love you guys.